Well, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Shawn right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And I have a member of the Curtain Call family. We're going to call him. I'm told I'm supposed to call him the celebrity of Curtain Call Records. How are you, sir?
I'm just fine, Sean. How are you?
I'm great. So I have. Well, introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Shawn Michael Perry, and I've been fortunate enough to get with John and Brian at Curtain Call Records as a new artist with them. I have some pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Good rock music with some great musicians and a bit of a story to tell.
So, uh, people hear your name and they'll go, that sounds familiar. Why would I know him? And why would they know you?
Well, I think Brian is a great guy, and I thank him for his shout out to me. Well, in all honesty, sir, I've done a lot of work in the movie business, especially a few years back. I did a lot of stunt work in films like Last of the Mohicans, Wild Bill, On Deadly Ground, just to name a few. And also did some actual acting in the Murder She Wrote, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, Star Trek The Next Generation. So perhaps that might be the reason why.
Well, I was going to ask you too. Being so where I am, I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We get a ton of film up here. Well, after we had a wonderful leader that decided that they shouldn't be funding filming because it was I don't know, a tax credit, so it was making all kinds of money. But we'll get rid of it. So, but it's back. But have you ever been up in this neck of the woods on
I,
shoots?
No, sir, I have not, but would love to. Uh, know a lot about the area just from researching and whatnot. So maybe it's in the cards for one day.
Yeah, I mean they shot a lot of cool things here. Like some of Titanic was shot here. K-19 was shot here.
Yeah.
Um, Tom Selleck did a lot of stuff with the Jesse Stone films. We've got a long history, so yeah, you'll have to get up here, especially in the summertime. Not so much in the winter, but
Yeah.
summertime for sure. And where do you reside again?
Yeah, I live in Clarkdale, Arizona, which is right outside of Sedona.
So yeah, so if I said snow, you'd be like, what? 'Cause I was talking to the Chase on Greg Chase on and his two brothers the other day, and they were basically saying that as a Canadian, the only time I would probably want to go to Arizona is like February.
Oh man, it's so funny you bring those guys up. Well, Greg in particular, I just think he's the cat's meow when it comes to bass playing, man. I think he's the best there is. And I remember him saying, "Oh, well, there is no best." But for a young, impressionable kid, for me at the time, he blew my socks off, man. And I've been around a lot of cool musicians, man, but just something about the tone that he gets and the way it feels on stage. Uh, Honestly speaking, I was fortunate enough in 2015 to get him and oh, now I'm going to forget his name, Racer X,
Jeff
the
Martin.
singer. Thank you very much. I got both those guys to perform with me, and we did a couple of Badland songs, man, at the NAMM show, man, and that was like the highlight of my whole life. Wow, Uh, anyway, it was kind of interesting, because I was just tuning into your channel, and I was thinking, well, I better check a few things out here, and sure enough, the Chason brothers were on. So that was
That's
very
great.
refreshing and surprising for me, and I can't say enough about how good he plays.
But I mean, Greg's been on my show 3 times now, and we clicked right away. And I mean, the thing that he always says to me is, I don't ask the same stupid questions that they get 1,000 times. But yeah, that's what I try to do, right? I mean, why be lazy, right? Be interesting,
Yeah.
and so that's what I think. So, in terms of your music, so how long you been with Curtain Call? It's a fairly new sort of venture for you, is it not?
Yes, it is. I made the record in 2023, but really didn't, do much with it because I was looking for a home for it. And push come to shove, we got involved with Curtain Call. I just reached out and asked if they had any availability to work with me. And we traded some emails, traded some phone calls, looked at each other's perspective, and thought it was a good fit. So here I am. I would say I've been with them since I think it's been April, late April.
I don't even want to get this wrong, but I got to say you're the seventh or eighth curtain call artists that I've interviewed, and they
Hmm.
all say the same thing, which I'm seeing too, because I've got to know John a little bit and Brian, and music aside, because everybody knows the dog's breakfast these days. I mean, there's no such thing as traditional labels, and the business is so different. But what they do, what they seem to do better than a lot of them is help their artists get on festivals and shows and promote themselves and get their name out there. Is that a fair statement for you?
Yes, that's what we're working on too. I That's another reason I wanted to get involved with them because they're a growing company and they're taking chances and they're doing all the things that I think is necessary, to be competitive at the very least. Not that it's a competition, but you know what I mean, just to be able to get a share of the pie, if you will, whether it's a concert or a music placement or what have you. And so you know, being in the business for a little while, I've met some very interesting people and some people that really can help. It's just that you got to be able to get their ear for more than 30 seconds, you know, and you got to be able to work a relationship if that makes any sense these days.
It
Uh,
does. It does for sure.
so that's a big part of it. And at my age and what I'm doing now, I'm all about helping younger artists too. So that's another reason I joined the company because I see how I can help in other ways. I don't want to just all be about me and my band. I want it to be about the company. And so when I fly that flag, people are going to go, oh yeah, man, that's those guys. They're doing the right thing or they're trying. Those kinds of monikers.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because one of the things that I've tried to do, especially in the last 4 years with this podcast, is promote others besides myself. And I find one of the things in this business is very unfortunate is that the lip service of, oh, we're all in this together, we got to help each other out, but the actual action plan for that is very, in my opinion, it's very weak.
Mm.
You don't get a lot of people that actually practice what they preach in that department. It's a nice platitude. They love to say it to make everybody feel good, but you don't see a lot of that going on. Has that been your experience?
Well, yes, and it's just in some cases I don't even know if it has anything to do with music per se. It has to do with work ethic.
Right.
And maybe I'm just being an old fuddy duddy, but I just believe in that you got to just really work hard. I mean, look at the people that you and I respect, and some of the people you've interviewed, and I mean, all those have that same thing in common. They work their ass off, and when the opportunity comes, or if it's in spades, they're out there just gunning, and because there might not be a tomorrow. And I love that. Go down swinging, give them your best shot. All those kinds of things. This is what you see in the people that are surviving in the business, whether it's a young group or an established act or whatnot. And there is money to be made if you're smart with your money.
Right.
That's all I'll say about that. It's hard, but everything's hard. And I think there's some good. How do I feel? There's good appeal to that to those of us that like to run on the road because that's the other component. Hitting the road is not for everybody. And I think a lot of people realize that after they get out there. They might have the best circumstances, but so it's
No.
it's a fickle situation, but the rewards are great if you're willing to tough it out.
Well, and my experience, because I mean, I've been at this a long time, and as you mentioned, you have too. And I mean, the one piece of the puzzle for me that I think is thoroughly lacking. And I mean, I'm not going to say blame. I won't say it's because of this, but social media. The one piece that I find social media has removed is the dues paying for some people. So, as an example, people today that are getting started in the business might not ever have to deal with not getting paid by a club and having to figure out how to get paid, or
Yeah.
being thousands of miles away from your home and your vehicle breaks down, you got to figure out how to get it fixed, things like that, right? That's the one piece of the business that people get their earn their stripes, and that's that to me is what's lacking. Somebody posts a video of them. I'm a drummer, and no offense, but the digital creators are twirling sticks and throwing them up a million miles in the air to me just gets so long in the tooth. Kind of love to get your
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Sure. I'm scared to death of AI and all the technology on one hand, and on the other, I want to embrace it somehow, some way. But if it's going to cut into my feeling of joy and my freedom, really, that boils down to that. It has nothing to do with carrying a tune. It's just being in the moment. I think for me, if I
Right.
can't have that, then wow. that's what I've it's my medicine, man. And I think if there are guidelines and situations where there's respect, especially for the artists that pre AI work their tails off to get in these positions, like we talk about, then I think it possibly could work for certain things. But don't take the work out of it. And it's kind of like an automated, working at the Ford plant. Nobody wants to lose their job, man, to automation. So the same thing with music for me. I don't. And these days, as you know, there are a lot of groups out there, and I'm not trying to be mean, but once they hit the stage, it's a different animal. And that
Yep.
really shows what kind of musician and what kind of practice you put into it, and so on and so forth. And again, what? There's 22,000 drops a day, man. Of singles or albums or something of that nature. Wow. So all your ducks got to be in a row in a sense, if that's your way of doing things, that if you're very technical and very, matter of fact, there are some that are more free flowing and, boom, the more Jim Morrison made a record in 7 days, that kind of. So I think there's a place to be where an artist or a company or a musician, a drummer, especially a drummer, it's, that's the heartbeat of the band, man. And without that, and with even though you and I've heard some pretty good fake drums, if you want to put it that way,
Yeah.
right? It's still not the same thing as being alive. And part of being alive is maybe fucking up a little bit. Excuse my language. Uh,
Absolutely. And
right?
I'll tell you a funny story, Sean. I do drum tracks for people, and I did a track for a producer who was a really good producer.
Mm.
And we did some file sharing. And when he got and we're gonna geek out here just for a second, but when I sent him the drum stem, he was like, I can hear kick drum and the snare drum, and I can hear, and it's like that's how real drums were because he was so used to the drum programs where everything was quantized and separated. Um,
Right.
and that's the beauty of go back and listen to those old Zeppelin albums. I mean, a lot of the
Yeah.
sound was mic bleeding all over the place, and so I get what you're saying, right? And it's really that's the part of the business I think that is solely lacking right now. It's just some of the heart and soul is not there. It's just so processed,
Yeah,
and you know what I mean?
I do. And I want to, I want to hope that it's a fad, that it's a passing of a season, if you will. We have to see, and then again, we come down to personal freedoms again. Who's
Right.
sticking their nose in our business, right? So, wow, it's electrifying times in that bigger social view.
So talk about the album that you said you finished in 2023. I can't believe I was going to say 2003. Um, I started this podcast in 2020. I was out playing about 100 shows a year. Everybody knows we don't need to revisit what happened, but an awful lot. I'm a pandemic product, I guess, in terms of my podcast.
Mm,
Was your project sort of that, or was it post pandemic?
interesting. Uh, it started out uh, pre-pandemic, I guess, in the sense of energy and thoughts and direction and whatnot. Then here came COVID, and then that just slammed me down to the floor, man. Really, and not because I got sick so much, but just because it was hard to go places and organize, and like everybody else. So I kind of reshaped, and I think it was a good thing for me because I was able to reach out and get the producer that eventually produced this record, which is Alessandro Del Vecchio, and who was the head man at Frontiers for many years in the producing department. Uh, and I can't just say enough of him and how he brought my music to A-level status, in the sense of just his thoughtfulness in the production.
Well, he left there recently, if I'm not mistaken. It was like what months ago that he sort of decided he was moving on.
Yeah, it's some personal reasons, some health issues, etc., and new child. Uh, but I mean, if you go back and look at the catalog over the last 10 years with him involved, oh my God, man, it's just some great music and some great musicians, and
Yeah, they
elated.
really seem to they seem to be that label that is trying to bring or I don't want to say bringing back, right? Because I think it was a little lower. that genre of music kind of, and I think maybe there needed to be a little bit of a reset on it. It was just getting too much. But I mean, you see what's going on now with the Monsters of Rock cruises and all these things. I mean, that genre is, and I'll call it the, 80 to 90, 1980, 1990. It just seems like it's stronger than ever. What was it like working with him?
Butter. No, it was beautiful. And the greatest thing about it is that we've been friends for a long time before this even happened. I had so much respect for him that I almost was like in awe of him to the point where I just didn't put two and two together that perhaps I could even work with him, eh?
Right.
And so I threw that Canadian action in there for you,
You
but
did
no
all the
better.
way from Arizona. And you know what? I didn't use it once. I did not use it once.
Oh Lordy. Um, so I had listened to what he had done, and I think probably the first thing that made me go, "Wow, what's going on here?" Is he kind of revamped Joe Lynn Turner's career, or they did,
Yep.
in this, at least in the production value of records. And there was a particular song that he did that just blew my socks off, man. And I was like, "This is beautiful, man." And so I called him back up and I said, "Hey, I think it's time," and he said, "Yeah, I got time," which was amazing because I don't even think that guy sleeps.
Yeah.
He's just working constantly, and the value of what he's putting out is just, I can't say enough. So being American Indian, we also had a connection there too because his band Edge of Forever has this kind of pseudo native vibe to it, in his storytelling in his songs. And I just think it's really brilliant how he put it all together. And it's a lot to talk about. But long story short, Italian men and women were in Florida a long time ago, and that's the connection. Uh,
Well, there you go. Whatever it takes for as long as it takes you. So I guess going forward now, what are your plans? I mean, it's hard to believe. Here we are, the dog days of August, right? And up here in Canada, we've been doing a lot of festivals with the band that I'm in, but there's been festivals taking place. They'll still take place into the fall. But what are your plans for playing, touring, performance? Pushing the record.
sure. So I have some really great guys working with me now. Mr. Jake Fawn on guitar. Uh, uh, um, Gosh, I'm trying to think of the guys' names. Uh, uh, well, let me stop right there and let's just answer your first question. I'll get back
Sure.
to that. So we are putting a small tour together, if you will, starting in the month of November, mostly here in Arizona, and then we're going to work our way down south into Southern California, and then end up at the NAM show next year, the 24th, playing at the Whiskey, and maybe one other date down in Anaheim, just depends. And so then we'll really be able to, you know, put our calling card out there, if you will. Here's the new band, here's the tunes, and not to mention, by then I'll be working on another new album also, with Alessandra at the helm again. Uh, so that's kind of the immediate plans, and now I remember the guys' names.
Oh, that's
Oh, the
good.
other guitarist's name is Ofer Holan, and he's from Israel. Jake Fawn's from England. Then we have Max Aguilar on the drums from Guatemala, and our new bass player also from Israel, Shah. And so that's the new team I put together to be able to comp the actual players that are on the record. That's Alessandro Del Vecchio on guitar, most notably on Robin McCauley's new records. Oh my God, great, excellent, yummy.
Yeah.
Uh, and then we have, of course, Allie's on the bass and the keys and the background vocals and most of the production. Yeah. Excuse me. So I needed to find musicians that could do that. This album's it's rock, but we have some nice arrangements going on. And not it's might sound easy to play, but maybe not so much once you jump into it, right? Take some practice. And so that's very important to me. I don't want to just jump out there because I'm me. I want to jump out there because I'm ready. And so in this case, we are, and I'm very happy to have these guys with me. And then just to have the world feel to the band too is pretty cool.
No, that's amazing. We got to make sure that we're getting our time slot here correct. So if you would tell my viewers and actually the Rock Rage Radio listeners where they're going to find out about what you have on the go, where they're going to get this music, where they're going to find it when you're touring, etc.
You bet. First and foremost, I'll put curtaincallrecords.com because they have my EPK there, my videos, my songs. Uh, and then for touring information, you go to ShawnMichaelPerry.com. And or we will also have a something with Curtain Call Records that will probably be, when you click on my name, you'll be able to see the dates that we're having as well. Uh, and then the other cool thing about it is, the real goal is just to kind of stick. I don't really want to play, tons of shows. I mean, if I get them, I'll do them. Yes, sir. But I'm at the point now where I'm kind of selective in the sense of, I'm able to maneuver because of my name and what I've done. I'm able to get in some really possibilities of some nice gigs, if you will. And that's always a good thing to do, right? I mean, it's hard and I've worked really hard for it. And, but don't get me wrong, for example, I was licking my chops, man, when all the rest of the guys were up in sidekicks, up in Sturgis, and for me, no matter where it is up there, man, it's like, damn, man, it's Sturgis, you know. I would, I'm going next year for sure if God wills it.
Right on. I was actually supposed to be there this year. It didn't work out, but maybe next year. Shawn
There you
Michael
go.
Perry, thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it.
You're the best, man. Thank you for your time, man. I enjoy watching your show.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon, guys.
You
Back
bet,
right
bud.
after this.